All right, folks, it is, what day is it now? Friday, February 28th, and it is the last day of February. So therefore, we need to do a Headrush live stream so we can make some awesome rigs for you guys to either follow along and just learn and just have fun, or you can actually sign up for my HTS rigs course on my website, drmcfarlandstudios.com. Pay a very nominal fee, and you get the benefit for the rest of your life of being able to access these rigs. And just go download them and then load them up to your Headrush of choice, whether you have the legacy units or the new Prime Core or Flex Prime. And we just have fun learning about signal flow, which amps sound great with which cabs and what mic selection, and just all the different things that, you need to know when you're working with a mauler. And really all these concepts apply to every mauler out there. Literally doesn't matter if you're using a Tonemaster Pro, which I do have here in front of me. I recently sold my Kemper Stage. Not saying it wasn't a great unit. I got so much stuff, man, in basketball. Basketball takes up my life. I like watching basketball. So I can't just sit around and have all this gear laying around not being used. And I have money tied up in other things like guitars and whatever else. So anyway, so I sold the Kemper. But yeah, if you got a Quad Cortex, which if they ever come back out with a black Quad Cortex with the gold foot switches, I think that just looks dead sexy, and I would love to have one of those. Now, there were some early on, there were some workflow things that I was not fond of at all. And maybe they fixed those by now. I'm not sure. I might have to get another one here in the future to say I have one and try some things out. But to me, the foot switches were just too close together, and so therefore it was only a desktop unit. I never really used it on the floor, and plus I didn't like the power supply and just all the things. And I've seen people build boards around those Quad Cortexes, and it's just a lot of hoopla for something that already cost $1,500, $1,600. So it is what it is, but yeah. Let's see, what else have I had? I currently have the Line 6 Helix, the floor unit. I've also had I've had on loan from Zounds.com. I had the HX Stomp XL, and then I did have a HX Stomp for a little bit, and I still have the HX Effects right over here. You can kind of see it right there. The HX Effects is a really good multi-effect unit. Doesn't have any amps or cabs, but if you just want a simple unit that just has effects, then the HX Effects is really good. Let's see what else. I don't want to, and I don't need to, but I'm very tempted to buy an FM9 again. Because since I've had my Fractal stuff, they now have gapless switching across all presets and blocks and block channels. So that makes things very interesting as far as options for setting up your presets and your scenes and how you switch between, and just really studying the workflow of different units and what the positives are of those units and what the negatives are, and the good and the bad and the sound quality and just all the things that you have to do with certain units. So let's see, what else have I had? I'm currently reviewing the Boss GT1000 and also GX100. I have not started making videos on that yet, but I do have those in my possession. Once again, they are on loan from Zounds.com, which is my official affiliate partner. I'm trying to get that right. It just rolls off the tongue. And which means I can say, hey, I want to try out this piece of gear, and they'll send it to me. I can try it out. Then I can send it back. And if I want to buy something at a nice discount, then I have the option of doing that as well. But so far, I've just been getting gear in, Like I have some guitars and basses over here I need to make some videos on and then review it and then send those back. So it's just a good relationship I have with Zanos.com. Very similar to like Rhett Scholl and Sweetwater or Colt Caparoon or Rick Beato, or just anybody out there on YouTube that has a relationship with some kind of online dealer to where they can get the gear into their studio, do the review, and then send it back if they want to. Or keep it or buy it or whatever the deal is they have. So anyway, it is what it is. What I have here in front of me is the trusty old MX5. This does not have the web editor like the new Prime Core and Flex Prime units do, but it's still a kicking unit and it has great sounds in it. And I figured tonight, this is a horrible joke, but it is Black History Month. I'm not black, but I do appreciate those who are. And I was like, let's do a blackface. Let's do a blackface type episode where we just look at the. I like the Black Mini. I've always loved that model on the Headrush. Let's do a Fender Twin. Let's do the Black Shimmer. There's the Deluxe Reverb amp. And there might be like a Vibrolux or something. I don't remember. We'll need to look at it. But yeah, I just want to keep it really simple. And I've been teaching some jazz and blues standards here in my my private lessons I give students. So, when you're working with the songs that or the genre that those amps came from, yeah, you can play jazz on a Marshall JTM 45, or you can play rock or country on a Soldano if you want to, right? But when you think of classic, jazz and blues, it's really the blackface amps. It's really the Fender Deluxe. It's the Fender Twin. Fender Twin has tons of headroom. Very hard to distort. Thank you. My brain just stopped working there for a second. I do like the Black Shimmer because it does have a nice, smooth high end, but it is more trebly, it's a brighter amp than some of the other amps in there. So if you want, I can start building, but feel free to state your name, where you're from, and let me know what kind of guitar rig you have if you want to do that. You can chat up there in the comments and reactions. And as I get going here, I can just look at the comments and say hi to whoever and answer any kind of questions that you may have. Because even though I want to make some blackface amp rigs tonight, you can pull me in any direction that you want. You can be like, hey, I want you to make a rig based off of this. It's like, okay, well, let's do that. You know what I mean? So this is really all about you guys. It's not about me and just whatever my preconceived ideas and notions are. I want this to be an interactive live stream. So y'all come on in, invite your friends, take this link and share it with your friends, and you can all gather around and do some learning and do some tone creating. So here we go. This is the sound of a blank rig with absolutely nothing in it. And we also have our split view here, so you can see there's the MX5. I do prefer to have my master volume around that 7 and 8 mark. And I'll show you why here in a second as we start building rigs. But the first thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and find our amp. And these are the numbers in the front of these models. Okay, I'm going to have to, let's turn off. Yeah, let's put this on manual focus so my hand doesn't get all weird. Okay. So the numbers in front of the names there, those are the actual years that those amp models came out. And actually, if you go to headrusheffects.com and click on any one of the Headrush products, you can actually click on models and you can go through all the amps, all the cabs, all the effects, and you can actually see what these names are being based on. Most companies, they have to change the name just slightly or entirely, so there's no copyright strikes or trademark. It's not really a copyright strike, but it's like a trademark kind of deal. So yeah, that's the way it is. So, but you can kind of guess. It's like 59 Tweed bass. Okay, that's a Tweed bassman. We have the Tweed Deluxe, which is like the small 5F3 whatever tube that is, especially what those kind of amps are. But then in the 60s, that's when the blackface amp started being created. So we have the Black Lux Norm and the Black Lux Vibe. So those are essentially the Fender Deluxe Reverb. So Deluxe, that's where the Black Lux is. And then we have a blackface version. Now, I think I'm not sure exactly on the dates here, but maybe in the late 60s going into the 70s, that's when they started having the silver face amplifiers. And actually one of my very first big boy amps was from Guitar Center. I saw it in the used vintage area when they had that there here in Nashville. And I bought I feel like it was a 76 Silverface Princeton Reverb. And I had that amp for quite a few years. When did I get that amp? I probably got it around 2005. I feel like I sold it around 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And the reason why I sold it is this, which is really a funny story. Then we'll start building here soon. So the reason why I bought that, or I sold the amp, was I walked into Mike E's Guitars in Laverne, Tennessee. It's like it's actually a pretty big store. Actually, the back of the store was even bigger because he had like a little band setup thing back there behind the store. But I walked in, as I often did after I got off work, or if I was going through Laverne there, I would try to stop by because he just had a cool store. And I would go play on guitars and play on amps that he had in there. But one day, I played a very similar 60s Princeton Reverb, and that amp just blew my mind. It was so good. The mid-range was smoother. The reverb was smoother. Just everything about it was amazing. And my heart instantly sunk in my chest. And I was like, the amp I have is horrible. Now, for years, I thought, it's like, oh, it's just a Princeton Reverb. It sounds pretty good, right? But when I compared it to this other amp, it was just night and day. It really was. It was like, wow. I can't believe how much better this amp sounds. Unfortunately, the guy, the store owner, had already sold it online, so he was going to ship it off to the new owner or whatever. But after that experience, I could not keep the same old Princeton Reverb that I had for years. I had to sell it. So I sold it to some studio guy here in Nashville, and I've owned 35 different amps over the years, guys. I've owned so many different kinds of amps. Everything from Marshall to Fender, Mezza Boogie. I had a dual rack a little bit. I had a PV 5150 block letter head. I have a 2x12 in my attic here that's missing some speakers because I messed them up somehow. I need to replace them one day. I've just literally owned all kinds of stuff. And for me, in my personal experience, the reason why I like modelers, it's not that it sounds worse or better than tube amps or just real amps in the room, but the tone is way more consistent. Okay? The reason why the amp at Mikey's guitar store in Laverne sounded so much better than subjectively than my Guitar Center purchase that I made years before was there's a little thing called tolerance. And when you start combining all these transistors and resistors and caps and all the things that goes into a tube amp, though those tolerances, they can be anywhere from 10 to 20% tolerance, just depending on the manufacturer and the year and all the stuff. So probably what happened was the amp I bought originally, excuse me, I had a brownie tonight. The amp I bought originally probably just had a worse tolerance or just a right combination to where it just made it not sound as good as this other amp that had maybe the tolerances were the same, but in different areas, if that makes any sense. So therefore, the combination of parts made the second amp just sound that much better than the first amp I had. And that's what you're going to get if you dive down the rabbit hole of vintage amps. And I have to have a 62 blackface twin or a deluxe or whatever it is, or apparently they came out in 64, so like a 64 blackface. And you could buy 5 different amps and they're all going to sound different. They really are. It's just the way it is. Even the kind of speaker that they have, if they were manufactured in a certain year and then they happen to change the speaker the next year over, Tone Junkie, HW from Tone Junkie talks about this kind of stuff all the time. About you think you got a certain kind of amp in a certain year, then the next year they actually have the same amp, but they change the speaker, which therefore changes the whole sound. It's just nuts how much a speaker can change the sound of your amp. So that's why I choose to go digital. There's no tolerance issues. I can always run this through an FX return of a real amp to get that amp in the room experience. I also have a ToneMaster Pro or a ToneMaster FR12 cab right over here that sounds really good. I have the Aviator Cub, a US version and the UK version right back here if you can see my hand. What's up, Dwight? How's it going, man? I got started a little late tonight, but we're just going to hang out and have fun. So invite all your friends, and we're going to have some fun. Oh, let's see. Carson, what's up, man? I have a very eclectic setup that is unconventional but interesting. Fractal Audio AX8. I like those. And to mixer out to a small Blackstar amp, Roland BA330. And then the full range PA system. The surround aspect is orchestral. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it is. To a small Blackstar amp. Wonder why you have to have a mixer, though. I don't know what that's doing for you. But that's fine. That's cool. Yeah, I had the Fractal AX8. I was thinking you put down the FX8, but I did like the Fractal AX8. I like their XY switching kind of system. But honestly, the FM series from Fractal, the FM9, FM3, it's got way better switches. It now has all the gapless switching in there, which I'm really spoiled, guys. I like gapless switching. I really do. The ToneMaster Pro here in front of me is really just top notch. I know this is a Headrush live stream, but the ToneMaster Pro is really, really good. It's got gapless switching all over the place, and all the amps and cabs and effects sound amazing, and it's really easy to use. And it's really everything the Headrush could have and should have been, in my professional opinion. ToneMaster Pro is really good. So anyway, let's start making some rigs. So I know I've made tons of deluxe rigs over the years. Let's go ahead and let's choose the Vibe, and it did automatically pull in the silver cone, 2x12 silver cone. So I'm actually going to pick the 112. No, not the Tweed Lux. Hello. the 112 black panel Lux. And this is going to have the axis off, which is fine because we're going to have a nice warm jazzy tone here. And then let's put a 121 on that cab. Okay, now the first thing you really want to do is make sure the tone that you want is there. So let's go on the neck pickup, and I'm going to roll the tone down on this. This guitar has lithium pickups from Kiesel. This is a Kiesel guitar, and the lithiums are they're very bright sounding. So I'm finding that if I roll the tone down to like 4 or 5, it knocks off just enough of that top end to where it just makes it a lot smoother. Right? Something like that. Alright, so now without doing really anything else, that volume is pretty good. Okay? Now the next thing you want to do is actually go into your output, and then you're going to play about as hard as you're going to play. Okay. Now my volume needs to be around that 0 mark for me to really be consistent with all my rigs. So what we can do is just kind of tap, and then let's bring it up maybe like 5 dB. Okay, let's bring it up even more. Let's go up to like 8 dB of gain. I mean, honestly, we could stand to go a little bit higher here. Let's go 10 dB. Okay, let's knock it back down to 9. Split the difference there, okay? Now, what I was teaching earlier this week to my student on Monday, we were looking at some Wes Montgomery stuff. And it's very cool because he's playing with his thumb. You know, he's like... It's hard. I'm not used to doing it on the top strings, but in the video that I was watching, he has like this huge Fender Twin right behind him, and he's just nice, clean amp, and he's just playing away on his big box Gibson guitar. Right, so at this point, we have a good tone from the amp. We have just a basic cab with a ribbon mic on it, and let's go add some reverb. So we're gonna do the spring reverb here, and here we go. Now, there's a guy named Paul. What's up, TV Test Pattern? How's it going? He's been commenting a few times on my latest videos. He's blowing wind. I'm not sure what he's doing. I have no idea. Sorry. He's been commenting on my videos going, this thing is so confusing. I just don't understand how to do this whole Headrush thing. It's like, well, you kind of need to start with the basics, right? So add an amp, add a cab, add a reverb. Okay, just like you walk into a room, you see a Fender deluxe reverb there on the floor, and you take your guitar, you plug straight into it, and you turn it up, right? You know, whatever loudness you want in the room, and you just start playing. Now, to me, yes, I'm using headphones. I can also monitor through studio monitors if I want to. Make sure those are muted here. You're probably like, especially if you're experienced, right? You've already been down this road. Like, this is boring. Okay, I want to get you like, show me how to make rigs from like Cream or Jimi Hendrix or, and it's just like, name your band, name your song, whatever you want. But to some people, I mean, they turn on a unit like this. What do I do? Like, what order do I put things in? How do I do all this stuff? So just try to treat it like a real live setup. But maybe you're brand new and you just don't have a live setup. So it's fine. So usually, like for instance, usually the reverb is actually going through the speaker. So therefore, the speaker should be last. Okay? Because you actually have the reverb built into the amp, then it's coming out of the speaker. So therefore, the speaker needs to be last. So that's just a reason why you might want to put the speaker last in your chain versus having it earlier in your chain, like right after your amp head or something. So now, the reason this can work is that speaker cab and the speaker itself and the microphone are now acting as a filter for all your effects, not just, your drive and your amp and whatever else. Because so now your reverb and maybe your delay and your tremolo and everything else is being filtered through this cab. So let's actually put the reverb back here, kind of still at the end, but not after our amp or after our cab. Okay. Now, let's just for fun, let's go in and add a delay. And back in the day, they had tape echoes. They didn't really have dyne delays or anything. Yeah, let's just do a tape echo. How about that? Okay. Now at that point, you can double tap and you can set the sync on or off, which means you can either have the repeats be set to subdivisions, and those can be quarter notes, eighth notes, dotted eighths, halves, sixteenths, whatever you want. Then you can adjust your feedback, which is how many times the repeats happen. You do have a record level and a head tilt and a wow. That's all things having to do with your tape echo. As the tape is going around and coming back, you can have more wow and flutter to the sound. So if I'll bring the wow all the way up. So as it dies off, as it decays, you're hearing the sound kind of morphing, chorusy and stuff like that. So it's a little too much for me, but we can bring the feedback down and the mix down. Just a little delay there. All right, sounds pretty good. I love having tremolo as one of my main sounds. Okay. Now we do have a tremolo pedal right here, but if we look at the amp itself, notice we have a vibrato channel, which is technically tremolo, because vibrato is actually changing the pitch, and tremolo is a volume effect. So it's actually making the volume go up and down. So I don't know why they called it vibrato back in the day, but it is what it is. It's kind of like this is a tremolo arm, but it's really a vibrato arm because you're really changing the pitch. Right? But we call it a tremolo arm. It's just weird. They literally got the terms backwards. The amp should be called tremolo, and then the arm on your guitar should be called like a whammy bar or whatever it is. So we could technically go in here and turn on the vibrato channel like so. I prefer to kind of turn it down in like the 5 point whatever range. Okay, go over to the next page. We will bring down the intensity. And then for the vibrato sync, we can have that turned on. So if we actually want it to be a chord note pulse or an eighth note pulse or whatever, we can do that. So for example, if I go back, now it sets the chord notes. Wah, 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 wah. Maybe I want to go a little bit faster. That's kind of nice. Okay, so these are all things that you can consider. Now, let's say I like that, and I'm going to add one more thing here. Let's go in and add. Let's see, it was the 60s, so the only kind of distortion they really had was a fuzz face, technically. So let's go into the distortion here. Let's go down to the bottom. Let's add a round fuzz. We'll just make it mild. So now we can be playing a jazz tune one moment and then kick on a pedal, and then we can play Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, or we can play some Jimi Hendrix, or we can do all kinds of stuff, right? So that's a little loud in my ears. But that's the way it is. Let me know if that's too loud on your end, but it looks like it's clipping a little. Well, it's not clipping, but it's just loud. Maybe, just maybe it is a little loud on my end. I'm going to turn it down. Let's turn it down about 6 dB or so. See if that helps. All right, so that way I'm not crapping out on my meter here. I will turn up my headphones a little bit. That should help me hear it better. Now, I'm gonna admit that that's not the best sound I've ever heard. So let's just maybe turn the volume down a little bit. No, we can't do that. Can't do it that way. So if I do that and just turn it down, turn it back on. Okay, I'm going to take all that back. I don't like that at all. I don't care if it's the 60s or not. Let's just go with a very basic distortion. And then we can put in a tri-fuzz. That's actually not too bad. Santana used the Big Muff back in the day. So let's just call it Beef. All right, good. I like that one a lot better. Let's bring the sustain down just a little bit. Cool. I like that the most. So with that said, this really, like I said, allows us to play the jazzier, bluesier type stuff and then kick on a pedal, and we can easily have a cool rock tone if we want to. So now I'm back on my bridge pickup, which is going to be a little hotter than my neck. Right? I can also bring my tone back down a little bit. Somewhere around there. I might pick a different guitar here in a second, but I'll finish this rig out, then I'll switch guitars. All right, so there you go. We've kept it really basic. We have an amp head, a cab, a reverb, a delay. We can use the built-in tremolo, and then we have a overdrive fuzz pedal. Okay, so now from here we actually want to save it. All right, we're just going to call that deluxe. How about that? All right, now we need the last step in order to make the foot switches do what we want. Is we are going to go to our hardware sign. Okay, and we have 3 blocks. And we're going to hit amp. And I'm going to put in the tri-fuzz. Okay. So now I can turn that on and off for my first switch right there. Okay. Let me go into my global settings. And just make sure that the screen is dimmed all the way so you can see a little bit better. I can't see it as well, but that's fine. All right, for the second switch, we're going to actually turn on the amp vibrato. Okay, see how I did that? So you just tap on the block, hit amp, and then you can either turn on and off the amp, which we don't want to do, or we can hit the vibrato switch. And now we can turn the vibrato on and off, which is nice. And then I didn't want to exit out, but let's go back in. And then we're just going to leave the reverb on all the time. And let's go to the tape echo, and we can turn that on and off. And then we can hit save. So I can hit my first switch to turn on the tri-fuzz. Oh yeah, a little Neil Young kind of something going on there. Second switch is going to be our vibrato. Andrew Collins is in the house, yeah. Okay. And then we can turn on our tape echo. Okay, so I did a lot of talking, but if I'm not talking to you guys and trying to teach at the same time. I can easily make this whole rig in probably like 2 minutes, right? So now the great thing about building these rigs is every time you turn on the unit, don't feel like you have to just make a new rig every time. Make a rig once and then just keep going back to it. Because it's no different than showing up to a gig with your real amp and maybe your real pedal board, and that's what you use to play live. You're not taking hours before the gig swapping out pedals and rearranging your wires and your power supplies and your stuff. Like, no, you put together a board and you keep it that way, hopefully, for a reasonable amount of time until you decide that, hey, I actually want to like use another overdrive pedal, or I found this cool new delay that I want to try, or, all the different things. So, that's why I never could. I really stopped making pedal boards for that reason. It's like I've owned so many different pedals over the years that it's just going digital. It just makes way more sense to me to go digital. Because literally all the effects you'd ever want is already in the unit, and you don't have to go out and buy, most of the time, pay another $100 to $200 per pedal just to try something new out. You know what I mean? Now, if I wanted to put together a pedal board, this Pantheon Dual Overdrive is really good. I can dial in 2 different kinds of gain sounds. And then maybe I would put maybe some kind of boost or a compressor before the pedal. Then I would have I probably have a delay. Then I would love to have, once again, I've had this pedal before, but I would love to have the Strymon Flint. That gives you a very beautiful tremolo and reverb in like the same box. And it's just really good. So, yeah, if I was getting back in the pedals, which I'm not, but a Strymon Flint with a trim and reverb, a Pantheon, maybe a Tube Screamer, maybe a Timmy, a Paul Cochran Timmy would be a really cool pedal to have. I did have some of the Wampler like mini pedals. I had the Rat's Bane, which is based on a rat. I had the Moxie, which is a Tube Screamer. I had a whatever you call it, the Nobles ODR version, whatever he called it. They're all great pedals. But then it goes back to, okay, I want to be able to put them in a switcher so I can actually hit one switch and then change my sound. And by the time I mentally go through that process of trying to figure out what kind of pedal board I would want and what pedals I would want and what kind of switcher I would want to put it through, I'm like, I already have all that stuff in a Mahler. So why would I go through all that trouble just to do that? I'll literally mentally go through this exercise like at least once every 6 months. Like the gigrig.com, they recently came out like yesterday or 2 days ago with a brand new pedal board that fits their switchers perfectly. And you can have like different tiers. You can add in different expression pedals. But by the time you buy the switcher, which is like $1,800, and then you buy their pedal board, which is anywhere from like $500 to $700, you are already like $2,500 into a new pedal board, and you don't even have any pedals bought yet. To me, that's nuts. That's just nuts. And then you got to get all the cables. You got to get the power supplies. I mean, putting together a legit pedal board could easily cost $4,000 to $5,000. Easy. Because you probably want to get like the Strymon stuff, like the trifecta Strymon, the Big Sky, the Timeline, and the Mobius or something, right? And then you want all the overdrive stuff. Maybe you want to buy like an HX Stomp for like some extra effects and maybe an amp sim. Maybe you want to get some cool modulation effects. I mean, you can go wild buying all these individual pedals just to realize that after spending $4,000 to $5,000 on all this stuff, you literally could have saved money and just bought a $1,500 Toastmaster Pro or a $1,000 Headrush Prime or a $700 Headrush Core or a $400 or $500 Flex Prime, or you could have got a Boss GT1000, which has tons of amps and tons of effects and cool ways of switching stuff. Or you could have got a Kemper stage for $1,400-$1,500. So you look at these Mahlers, you're like, man, they're so expensive. But if you really shopped around at like pedals and the switching units that you need to like do all the same things that you can do with digital is cheap. It is so cheap. Now, if you're like me and you're actually making tons of videos with all this gear, and you actually buy all the gear, which I have bought most of my gear over the years, especially the Mahlers. I own multiple thousands of dollars worth of digital Mahlers. But if I had to just choose one that would last me the rest of my life, I'd only be in like $1,000 to $1,500 for a decent Mahler, and it would do everything I'd ever want to do. So anyway, that's enough talking about that. Let's do a save as here. I hope that makes sense about the mindset of why you even go digital in the first place. Okay, it is convenient. It is a heck of a lot cheaper in the long run. It really is. And then it's easy. You just plop it down on the stage, plug it in, go to direct to front of house, and there's your sound. I mean, you literally have the same sound every night, whether you're playing at church, whether you're playing at a bar, whether you're jamming at a friend's house. I mean, the sound you have is literally there. It is not going to change. You're not going to worry about tolerances in an amp and different pedals and whatever else. So, what am I going to do now, Nathan? I am going to crank this amp up, man. Here we go. HTS Feb 25. All right, CR Lux. What does this mean? I'm going to crank this thing, okay? Now, what that means is I'm going to have to go to my output stage, and I'm going to have to turn it back down. So maybe I should do that first. Let's turn this back down just to save our ears. Somewhere around there. And then let's literally just take that volume and just crank it, just jack it all the way up. Okay, so here we go. Listen to how bright these pickups are. So here's with it all the way up. Here's with it down like around 4 or 5. Woo, there we go. We got some more comments here. Andrew Collins, which is the Helix connoisseur, by the way. I just like giving nicknames to people because they love it. You don't have to worry about tap dancing on pedals all night. That is very true. So what I'm talking about is if I had this pedal with a delay on one side and maybe like a boost on the other. Yeah, that would be like 4 different switches I have to worry about, right? Then you add another, like a tremolo pedal. Well, that's another switch. Then you add whatever other pedal like a tube screamer or something, right? That's just another switch. Now you got 6 switches that you got to deal with. Now, maybe on the reverb, you just leave it on all the time. So it goes back down to 5 that you have to deal with. And maybe you have an overdrive pedal that actually has 2 channels, but one is a global bypass and the other is just a channel switcher. So you can kind of, once you turn the pedal on, you have the option to either change the channel to go to the other side of the pedal, or you can just bypass it altogether. So there's different ways of going about that. And maybe you have like a compressor in the front that you always leave on as well. But anyway, the point Andrew is making is, if I want to go from like clean, if I want to go to just clean, there it is. I have all my pedals off. I just have a clean sound going into my amp. And maybe the amp already has reverb on it or something, right? So then I want to go clean with delay. Okay, so I have to go kick in my delay pedal. That's like one stomp. But now I want to go to a rhythm sound, like a dirty rhythm sound with no delay. So now I have to go back to the delay, turn it off, go over to my rhythm, my overdrive pedal, turn that on, and that's like 2 taps, like tap, tap, right? So what switchers do is you can plug all your pedals into the back of the switcher, and you actually have to take the time to set up presets. But what that does is you can hit one button, and that turns on any combination, or turns on or off any combination of the pedals that you had set up on that preset. And I've already said this like earlier in the stream, but going through that whole process makes you realize that that's exactly what digital does for you. But you don't have to buy all the pedals. You don't have to arrange them in a certain order on your pedal board. You don't have to make the cables and the power supplies and all that extra stuff. You don't have to figure out what size pedal board you need to fit all of it on there. You literally just buy the unit. It has all the amps and cabs and effects you'd ever want. And now you just have fun like we're doing now. We just literally build the rig or the preset with whatever elements we want in that preset. And you can play with that certain preset. You can make a new preset. And now you can just start the process all over again. And you don't have to buy more pedals, more cables, more power supplies, more pedal boards, more all the stuff. So anyway, a Fender Deluxe is probably one of the most recorded amps like in history. I've heard that for multiple guys on YouTube, and Rick Beato and all the different people, right? Leon Todd, whatever. Yeah, so this is what brings me to another option that you can have on the Headrush units and other units as well. But we can actually hold down Stomp Rig 1, and we're actually going to go to Rig View. Okay? Now, since I've already made a set list and I'm making all these new rigs within the set list, I can now go from one rig to the next. So I'm on my clean sound now. And then go to the other rig. So now you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. You can set up different rigs, even though they may have the same elements in the rig. You can now like adjust the volumes between the amps and the different effects or whatever else. So maybe one amp or one rig has a very short reverb, very short decay, or short delay time or whatever else. And then the next rig has a very long and luscious reverb with lots of delay and like more whatever, you know what I mean? So it's just all kinds of different options here. Now, there's really not a large gap there at all. I mean, there might be like a small, minute gap, but it's not very much, really, when you compare it, when you're just like playing. Once you get the drums going and the bass and everything else, like when you switch rigs to switch your sounds, the gap is not that bad, okay? Let's go here. Okay. What I did there is I pulled down from the top, and then I deleted the first rig that I had to put in the set list. So So now my first two rigs are here. And I got my clean and my do. Now, if I want to do one more, let's do one more. Sorry, I need to hit save. Save new rig. Okay, so just for fun, we're going to make an ambient patch now. And I am going to switch out the reverb. So the extra long algorithm sounds really pretty. So even though it's really short. So we're going to take the volume and we're going to leave it around that 63%. Okay. We're going to bring the decay all the way up, or up pretty high. Somehow it got on medium plate. There we go. Oh yeah. All right, now checking our output here. And let's say for fun, we're going to add one more element. We're going to add a compressor. And we'll do the dyne comp. And there's my dot comp preset. So it's not a very squishy sounding compressor in this setting, but it is slightly retaining the dynamics just a little bit. So and Dr. Thunder, good to see you, Doctor. He says modeling is the way to go. I would have to agree on that. Okay. Now you can see what I'm doing here. I can literally just keep save asing, and just keep altering the rigs as I go. So at this point, we can save, and I can go back to my first rig, which is my clean. Go to my second rig, which I do need to check the output on this. Okay. Let's bring up this rig volume a little bit. Okay. Now at this point, we can slide down and we can, I think, drag and drop Can we drag and drop? No, we can't. We have to go back into our actual set list. Let's do that. We're going to hit the dot, dot, dot and the pencil. And now we can move those around. See how I did that? You just kind of have to hold your finger on the rig and then drag it up. Okay, we can go back. We'll save it. Okay, so we go back to our first one. Here's the clean. And if you're a jazzer, bluesier kind of guy, you might just stay on that rig like all night. Especially if you're just like comping chords and stuff. Then if you're more of the blues kind of guy, you might stay on the middle rig, the cranked rig a little bit more. I just changed keys. And then maybe if you're like in the worship kind of arena and you're more of the cool like melody with lots of ambient reverb and stuff on it, then you can do this kind of thing. What was I doing the other day? I was teaching Our God by Chris Tomlin. So we were going like a... Okay. Now from there, you're like, okay, that's a good starting point. I like that, Nathan. That's pretty good. So maybe you would go back to the first rig and not go quite as dirty, but maybe do some other things. Maybe you want to do a clean, you want to do a tremolo, and you want to have like a little slapback delay kind of sound, maybe, right? And then the second bank, you can do, you can do more of your rockier kind of tones. Maybe you have the basic, maybe you have the same crunch tone, but maybe just a little down, not as cranked. So you have a little bit more somewhere to go. And then maybe you do full crank. And then maybe you have a tube screamer kicked in on the third rig, maybe with more delay and something like that for like a solo or something. Right. And then for your third bank, so like you got first bank, second bank, third bank. Those are more of like your worshipy kind of tones that you do you do want a cleaner sound, but then you want some kind of lead worship sound with still the same delay and reverb, but just more grit or something. So maybe like a good rhythm sound, but crunchier. And then you can do the full on lead tone with that one and still have tons of options to either go to a previous bank or go forward a bank or whatever you want. Okay. So, and you can also do this. Let's see. What am I thinking here? What am I thinking? These are currently set to blue. I need to go to hardware assign and notice that my rig is set to blue. Okay, this is another way that you can kind of keep track of what bank that you're on. So all these rigs can be blue. Okay. But now if I go and say, all right, I want to go to my cranked rig and do a save as. Let's just call it CR1, right? All right, now I've already banked over, so now this is called CR1, and I can go in and maybe just lower the volume a little bit. Maybe go down to like 60-ish range. Like I said, you want to have somewhere to go with this. But now what I can do is go into my hardware assign, and let's say I want all these rigs to be orange. Okay? So now look at that. We have an orange LED on our switch, and if I bank back one, I got my blue. Then if I bank over by holding down these two switches, so that's what these little arrows say. They hold, says rig bank up or rig bank down. So now I'm in my second bank. Okay. And we are going to save as again. We're going to call it C2. And we're going back up to our crank sound. Okay. Maybe not the full 100% yet. And I can also stand to turn the bass down a little bit. Okay. Once again, hardware assign. This is also going to be orange. Okay. So we got CR1, which is like still clean, but on the crunchy side. And then CR2. All right, let's do one more. Save new rig. Now we got a C3 rig. This is going to be... All right, the volume is going to be all the way up, but the bass is going to be considerably down. Oh boy. Sounds pretty good, right? So now we have three different kinds of tones for our bluesy, crunchy kind of sounds. And you probably want to go into your output. Make sure we're hitting right at that 0 mark. So we're nice and consistent. Okay, so we got that one. Then go to C2. Back to output. Kind of getting to the yellow there. So bring this one back down. Okay. And then go to C3. And instead of the fuzz pedal, I'm trying to reach over, but my mic is right here. So my mic really needs to be like somewhere over here or something. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm gonna turn the mic that way. How about that? I'm gonna add. Let's go ahead and add our tube screamer. The JRC Dock Scream Low, which means the drive is down, the tone's at around the middle, and then the level's all the way up. Okay. And then we're going to turn on our tape echo here. Okay, and let's actually go back to our amp. Let's turn the bass back up a little bit. Okay, back to our C1, C2, and then C3. And then we need to turn that volume down. Yep, I could hear it. It's too loud. Bring it back down here. And let's not crank the amp as much. Let's keep this like in the 80s. Okay. So that's just one of many examples. All right. So this is all with the deluxe reverb. Let's do one more bank. Let's make it the ambient bank, and we will change the amp out. Let's do a black shimmer for our ambient stuff. All right, so our A1 is going to be the first rig in our ambient bank, okay? And we're going into hardware assign, and we're going to make this bank be purple. Okay, and there we are. We have our purple LED right there that you can see. Okay. Now, what we got going on here? Let's turn off our tube screamer. So the 67 black shimmer, it just sounds really good. Honestly, it sounds really good. So let me switch my guitar for a second. Switching it out. Oh. All right, here's another Kiesel. This is a my Les Paul Black Beauty kind of tribute kind of going on here. The big block inlays and the gold hardware and whatever else. Master back on 7. Okay, got all my knobs up. All right, so we got the black shimmer. I can technically turn this all the way up. But do you hear how much? Let me turn the presence down a little bit. Let's turn the bass back up. We just have a very full, no breakup at all. I mean, you could compare it to the Fender Twin model in here. But honestly, the black shimmer is really good too. So. And that's a lot of bass, but we'll bring that down just a little bit. So we're back on our ambient stuff now. And we are going to go back to reverb. Go to 11 verb. And maybe we'll make it a cathedral or something. Okay, let's switch out our delay for a dyne delay, the Doc dyne delay. And make sure our mix is up. Okay. Pretty fun stuff, and that's pretty good for that one. Okay. Now, for our A2 slot, we're going to save as again. And we'll call this, we'll just call it A2. We'll know what that means. And then maybe, just maybe, what do I want to do on this? Let's go back to A1. Let's turn off our delay. Let's just have it be nice and reverby. And then on this one, we do have the delay on. Go back. Okay, now notice that you want to have your tails be on in your delay and reverb settings. So that way when you do switch rigs, you get that spillover between the rigs. So okay. And then maybe the last one, A3. This one is actually going to add in one more. We're going to do with the party verb. And what's the doc DH? That was pretty cool. Let's go with sparkle. I like the sparkle. It's pretty nice. Maybe the second one. What we're going to do here, maybe the second one also has that party verb. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go back to our Lush Sparkle. Like so. Turn the mix up. Then on the third one's really meant for our like lead sound. So let's actually go with, our, where is it? Glorious Drive. And this will beef up the tone for sure. Okay, we do want the high cut on, just for my personal taste. Because it is kind of bright. And then we can turn the drive down. Maybe turn the volume up a little bit. Alright, that's where we want to check our outputs. We always want to bring that back down. Or at least just check it to make sure it's around 0. Which it kind of is. Okay. Going back to 2, make sure our output's alright. It's just not, it's too loud. I'm telling you, doing it this way, you have very consistent volumes from rig to rig. Regardless of what, what bank you're in or what rig you're on or whatever else. And then back to 1. Check, check. What I'm doing with this knob is I'm turning it until I highlight what I want and then tap on it and then start turning. Because sometimes if you touch the screen, the parameter will jump. And I don't always like that. So okay. That's a little bit better. So let's review what we have. Let's go back to 1. And then 2. Which is slightly more ethereal. And then lead. All right, and then from there, we can go back a bank. And then there's our crunch. Which we can still use for any genre we want. It can be for worship, it can be for blues, it can be for pop, it can be for rock, whatever you want. And then go back another bank, and we're back to our jazzier kind of stuff. All right, let's say for this one, we're going to make this. Okay, the second one is the amp's going to be back down, but we are going to turn the tremolo on. And let's make it like a triplet eighth. Okay, something like that. Turn the intensity up just a smidge. All right, let's rename this. Let's call it J. Let's call it J trim. How about that? This one, let's rename it just for brevity's sake. We'll name it J1, J trim, and then this one can actually be our let's have this be our crunch tone here. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Back to reverb, back to spring reverb, whatever that is. And there we go. Okay, check the output on this. Not bad. Go back to here. Turn that volume back down. I guess I didn't save it. There we go. Go back. Go to triplet. Save. Back to here. That was a little lower in volume. Let's bump this up to like there. Alright, so this essentially gives us 9 different rigs. So, jazz, trim, lead, whatever. It's not sounding all that great. Let's do this thing. Okay, it's fine. Bank over. Here's crunch 1. Crunch 2, and then crunch 3, and then bank over one more time, and here's our ambient 1, then ambient 2, okay, then ambient 3. Alright guys, I hope that has been helpful to somebody out there who's like, how in the world do you do this whole Headrush thing? How do you Headrush? And well, that's how I Headrush. I actually have a video on the Headrush website featuring me that came out like years ago. And yeah, I've always liked the Headrush. It's just very simple to use. It's simple to set up. I've been talking this whole time, so it's taking me longer to do simple tasks. But I could literally build 9 rigs just like this. As long as I can conceive it in my head, I could probably build it all in just a matter of minutes and be done. So, but now that I've made them, I can easily show up with this MX5 at church this Sunday, and these can be my sounds for whatever songs we're doing. I got 3 different banks. I got everything from squeaky clean to crunch to full-on ambient and everything in between. And so no matter what song we're doing, I can easily get to whatever bank and whatever sound that I want in a pretty quick time. So, yeah, this would be fun. And it's great because some songs just don't need all the ambient stuff. But some songs I like to have some clean and maybe a little lead kind of sound. So I might switch out the tri-fuzz with like another overdrive or something. But, you know, at least it gives you a good starting point to kind of discover ways that you can use the features of the Headrush and build the rigs that you need for your blues, your jazz, your country, your rock, your metal, your pop, your hip hop, your whatever genre that you're playing. This thing can do it easily and it'll sound great. and it'll get you through the gig. So I appreciate everyone watching. Dwight, Doc Thunder, Andrew Collins, TV Test Pattern, who's blowing smoke or something. I don't know. Maybe he said I was blowing smoke. Wait a second. I don't know. Carson Farley and the usual suspects. So thanks, guys, for watching. I am Dr. McFarland. If you want to help support the channel, go to my website, buy the HTS rigs course. You can download these rigs and more. And or if not, you can rewatch this video and just follow along with what I do and make your own rigs, which is perfectly fine. But I just appreciate everyone watching, and I am going to go finish watching a basketball game. So y'all have a great night.